exactly the places where God told them not to go. Amen. Hallelujah. All shout me down. I'm preaching good. Good preaching. I'm not preaching good. Good preaching. Evidently, you leave the house of God, you leave the people of God, and I guarantee you, you'll end up places where God brought you out of. You'll end up in doing things that God had you to lay down. And it might just be one thing. Now, there's something we love in our life, and so you know what Jonah got into. And now there's another man in Jesus' day. Well, Moses said, I can't talk. God said, that's no problem. You got a brother that can. See, when the money's on the table, we start asking questions. God made a way for Moses to get out of there. Then there's one other thing, a lot of them, but there's one thing God did for Moses. When he was down bringing the children out of Egypt and through the wilderness and all of that, it wasn't all smooth. It wasn't all easy. It got rough. They didn't have any water. God told Moses to go strike that flint rock. A flint rock, when you strike it, it puts out fire. Did you ever have, a flint rock? I was raised on the farm. We'd find arrowheads and stuff like that, and you rub them together. They say you can start a fire with them. Well, I can start a fire with a stick. I can do that. That's no problem. It's just easy as the world. I know people talking about starting fire with wood, with a stick. As long as it's a match, I can do it. See, you can do anything if you got. And so Moses went to that rock. He struck it, and water gushed out. He hadn't struck that rock, they wouldn't have had any water. Well, it went on and on and on, and finally the same thing happened again. You know what worked yesterday? God may not work for you today, because God wants you to follow him, and when things change, God wants to maybe change you in what you preach, what you do, or God don't want you to just sit there in that one thing. There may be another job that God wants you to do. Well, they get out of it again. Moses was angry with the people. Moses he just called them rebels. He got mad at them. I'm not mad at anybody this morning. I've loved this church today. I come here and I'll love it today I leave. I'm not mad at anybody. But I got up this morning. I took a shower. I looked in the mirror and I combed my hair. And yesterday, every little hair was in place. I looked in the mirror and I combed. There's this little bunch right here. It just stood up like that. I felt of it and it felt like wire. It didn't feel like hair. Did you ever have a bad hair day like that? I have. Brad, Adam said no, but he wishes he could. He says, I wish I could hurt like that. I looked at that and I said, what am I going to do? Midge sees this, she's going to say you got a rooster tail, something like that. So I looked in that mirror and I sprayed right on it, hairspray, put water on it. Right there it was. And then I got to looking in that mirror and I thought, everything else is so perfect, I'm not going to worry about that hair. Nobody will notice. But I went out for a while and done some other things and come back in, picked up the comb, mowed that hair. I didn't mow it, I felt like it. Pushed that hair down, see there? It just went right in place. God takes care of us. Even my hair, I still got some. But anyway, he told him to go he told him to go to that rock and get water. But he didn't tell him to strike the rock. But Moses was so upset in his work. When you get upset working for God, you're in the wrong business. You're going to preach to people who don't like you. You're going to preach to people who don't agree with you. You're going to preach to people when they're asleep. You're going to preach to people when you think they're dead. But don't get mad at them. I get tired too. But I found out this. I have sat and actually prayed for God to give that preacher an ending. He went on so long, preaching the second message, same thing over. And the more I prayed, the longer he preached. Now I just say, Lord, let him have it. When he gets done, we'll go on. But do it the way God says. He said, Moses, speak to that rock. Moses grabbed that rod and whacked that rock. And boy, water came flying out. But God took Moses in the back room. Because he wanted him to speak to the rock. Remember, God was so good to the children of Israel. And he just asked them to do one simple thing. They needed food. There wasn't any. And so God said, I'll open up the heavens. Don't worry about it. 6 days, there will be food on the ground. 5 of those days, he asked them not to do just this one thing. He said, don't gather more than what you need, because it'll be back again. Do people listen? No, some of them gathered up a whole bunch. When he looked at it the next morning, it stank. It was rotten. Anytime you do something out of the will of God, and you think you're good at it, and you don't have to do what God says, I'm getting so good, I can do this, I guarantee you'll end up stinking. And it won't be any good. Still with me? Amen. Still love me? Yes. Oh, sure you do. Sure you do. But he said on the Sabbath day, the 6th day, he said, gather enough to do through tomorrow, because there's not going to be any here tomorrow. You know, sometimes it's pretty wise to think a little bit about tomorrow, you know. Like if you got a great message, it takes 3 hours to preach it. Preach part of it one night and the rest of it tomorrow. And you're probably saying, preacher, I hope that's what you do. But nevertheless, they went out, and some of them, it'll be here. You know, we take God so much for granted, no matter how good he is to us. He heals our body. He blesses us and takes care of us. And then sometimes it's so hard for some people to get out of bed on Sunday morning, go to church. You might say, Pastor, I didn't know you could preach like that. I didn't either. No. God fed them, and on the Sabbath day, there was nothing. You keep doing what God tells you not to do, you'll end up empty, nothing. I've seen people that's had it all, and they quit doing what God told them to do. They ended up with nothing. There was an evangelist. You probably wouldn't remember his name if I mentioned it. But he was from, Bob Harrington was his name. Some of you may have heard of him or know him. And he was just the greatest thing all around the country in the 50s and 60s. He was lived on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. He was involved in drinking and prostitution, anything you want to mention, he was involved in it. But allegedly he got saved. He was preaching everywhere. I've heard him on the Rex Lombard's program and all that. I'm talking about old people you people don't know. But Bob Harrington ended up going back to the old things. And the last thing I heard about him was he was in Los Angeles in a motel